Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Mel and today we're going to be talking about some of my favorite or most unique magical creatures. So I've got a big stack of books over here that have different magical creatures in them that I've just thought were more unique than just like your average dragon or like werewolf or something like that. So I wanted to share with you guys some magical creature books. This tends to be a very popular readathon prompt, so I figured this is 10 books that you can go, oh, that has like a magical companion or a magical creature in it and pick from. I won't go into a ton of detail about some of these if I feel like they are going to be spoilery because I do not want to spoil you guys, but without further ado, let's just jump in. These are in no particular order, it's just what I'm grabbing first. The first one is Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. The magical creatures don't come in this series much until the second book. They come in at the very end of this one and then are very prominent in the second and third books in the series, or at least I'm assuming the third book in the series. I can kind of go into brief detail about what they are without really spoiling anything. This world has been completely destroyed. The tree god that has kept the world alive has died, and the tree god is responsible for rebirthing the war beast that have helped fight off this alien enemy that they've been fighting on and off for like 800 years. And the war beast are all of these different creatures like a griffin, dragons, they could be like werecats, things of that nature, but they're always reborn into different forms. They can talk, and because they are always going back to the tree god, all of their memories are stored there. So each and every cycle that they are reborn, they are able to bring back their memories with them. But unfortunately, because the Eighth Reign basically destroyed everything, they were sent to be kind of like spirits, and they never went back to the tree god, and so they've lost all of their memory, their form, everything. They're just kind of floating in the abyss. I thought that these magical creatures were really cool. They were a fun twist on a very common type of creature, and I enjoyed this a lot. Then we have Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler. You guys have heard me scream from the rooftops about this book, and the magical creatures in this are a loose creature. There are a couple of different versions. We have constructs or things that are like made of different substances, made of different bones, and then we also have something called ghouls who are more creature slash people. They're kind of a combination of the two, and ghouls aren't really in this world anymore. They were killed off after a plague was hit. So we have two different types of magical creatures in this book. Neither one of them are super like animal creatures, but I still feel like it counts, especially the constructs. I think that they are very unique, and I'm hoping that we get more of them in the second book because they come in pretty prominently at the end of this one, and I found them really interesting. Then we have a beloved middle grade that everyone knows and loves, and that is Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This has a bunch of different creatures in it, but the main one that comes to mind is Fenestra. She is a giant cat, and she runs the show. Like, she is Queen Fenestra. You do what Fenestra says. She is the mother. She is the runner of the hotel. She is everything. I love the sassiness that is Fenestra. I love that we're talking about this giant purple cat. I think that is incredible. And like I said, there are many other magical creatures in this book, but Fenestra definitely steals the show. The second book, the third book in this series is called Hollowpox, and it actually follows a disease that is striking all of these creatures. So it's pretty prominent in the third, but she's definitely in this first one, so you could use it for any of those magical creature companion prompts. Then we have Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell. This one has the ever famous squirrel cat, and he is there on Kellen's shoulder. I love the squirrel cat. I think that he's hilarious. He's a very major smartass, and because of the way that he talks in like a chitter, only Kellen can actually understand him. So everybody else just hears this like crazy chittering squirrel cat, and he can hear this sassy barking, let me eat their eyeballs. So it is an interesting dynamic that I really enjoyed. I thought it was clever and unique. If you're looking for a magical creature with a lot of sass and some significant backtalk, this one may be for you. Then we have another middle grade, which is The Wizards of Once by Crescinda Cowell. This has so many magical creatures in it, like left, right, and sideways. They are everywhere. We have a talking crow that's been reincarnated. We have a giant bear. We have little sprites. I mean, there are so many different magical creatures in this that all have a very unique, fun take to them that I feel like you could use this for any magical companion, magical creature prompt. My favorite is probably one of the sprites. He is very cool, and just would do anything for anyone. Super good heart. But The Crow's really cool. This series is a lot of fun. It is on the, I feel like, younger side of middle grade, but it's narrated by David Tennant, who is incredible. And if you're just looking for a quick, fun read, I think that this one is a great choice. Next up, we have Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. This one has a different type of magical creature than really anything that I have seen before. This follows Mia, and Mia has a shadow cat called Mr. Kindly. And we find out that he is more of like a darken, but essentially he is made out of her shadow. He can talk to her, he follows her around, he has some different abilities that I won't go into too deeply because I can't remember if they're spoilery or not, but Mr. Kindly is really cool. I enjoyed him a lot, and we do have other darken or shadow creatures that will come into play later in the series, but I just think that he adds a lot to this story, and without him I don't think that Nevernight would be quite as cool and as unique and expansive as it is. Next up, we have A City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. So we have a couple of different things. I actually just went and looked in the glossary because I wanted to remember what all of these were called, and I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, so just bear with me, but Simurgh, which is a scaled firebird that Jinn are fond of racing. And then we also have Zahak, which are large flying, fire-breathing, lizard-like beasts, which are really cool. There are Madrid that are like water elementals. We have Pari, which are air elementals. Rook, enormous predatory firebirds. We have Shedu, which are mythical winged lions. I mean, there are things after things after things in this book, and this is one of my favorite series. I think that everyone should read it. It's a great bridge series for people that are really wanting to get into fantasy but maybe haven't read a lot of it, or you've read a lot of young adult and you want to try to get into adult fantasy. I loved this series. Super unique magical creatures, super unique, just amazing world building. You should read it. Then we have The Bonechar Daughter by Andrea Stewart. This one I absolutely loved. I didn't like the second book in the series as much, but I still really want to read the third and find out how everything ends. This one has a couple of different types of magical creatures in it. The first and foremost are the constructs. Essentially, the Emperor has a thing called bone shard magic where he can write on bones and he can create these bony constructs or things that he puts the sliver of bone into with all of these commands, and they have to do whatever he says. Some of these constructs are things like spiders and werecat things, and they're just a bunch of mixes of things. Others are a lot more subtle in nature that you wouldn't necessarily know they are constructs. But then we also have a little water creature cat thing called Mephi, and Mephi has my heart. I love Mephi so very much. I think everyone should read this book just for Mephi, and I think there may be some concept art for Mephi that I've seen around, so if I can find it, I'll put it up in one of the corners and link the artist down below, because I just think that it encompasses how adorable and awesome Mephi is, and he really grows into his own throughout the series, turns into a badass. He is one of my favorite magical creatures, and I think you should read this book just for Mephi. But also the magic system and the writing's really good too. And last but not least, we have this monstrosity, this tome, and that is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Again, this one has some different types of magical creatures in it. There are these worm-like things that have gemstones in their hearts that people need to power stuff, but they also have something called Spren, and Spren they come from many different things. They can come from grief, they can come from happiness, and they just kind of fuzzle up from different places and then they disappear once the emotion or the activity is gone. But there are some Spren in this story that hang around and have some really unique abilities and really unique reasons for being there. That's all I'm gonna say, because if I give you any more, it would be a spoiler, and I feel like that's something that's really cool to figure out as you go along reading this book, and especially Words of Radiance. So just know that the Spren are magical companions, magical creatures. They are very cool, and you should absolutely pick up this series because the world building is simply incredible. And then, just because I can't help myself, last but not least, let's do Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This one has a lot of different things in it. We've got giants and troll-like things. It's been a while since I've read this book, but one that comes out in particular memory is one of my favorite magical creatures or companions ever, and he's actually in the second book in the series. I don't want to go into names or anything like that because I do feel like that's a spoiler, but essentially he is a giant wolf companion that hangs out with Vin more so in the second book in this series. He's not just any wolf, and I feel like, again, it's a spoiler if I go into that too much, but just know that he is one of my favorite characters in fantasy. One of the reasons that I love Mistborn so very much. I feel like that character arc is incredible. Great magical companion, great magical creature. Highly recommend this series. This one is a lot more accessible, I feel like, than The Way of Kings. It is a not more simple writing style, but just more easily to get into. So if you're trying to get into epic high fantasy or Brandon Sanderson, this might be a great place to start. He also has Elantris and Warbreaker that do have some magical creatures and companions that are very cool as well. So just Brandon Sanderson in general writes some really interesting magical creatures into his stories, so highly recommend. Alright guys, so I think that is all 10 books that I wanted to talk to you about today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments some books that have some of your favorite magical creatures or companions in them, because I just don't have enough. Like, I was looking around and it's one of my favorite things in fantasy, but either I feel like it's a little bit more commonplace, like for example, Night Eyes in the Fitz trilogy by Robin Hobb. I love Night Eyes, but he is a more standard magical creature, so I just wanted something that I felt like was more unique. Let me know down in the comments what your recommendations are. I would absolutely love to hear it. Please don't forget that my Patreon is linked down below if you want to come and join the Monster Mash. You can also connect with me on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads, all linked down below in the description box. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a big thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!